Hi, welcome to another episode of the Perception Podcast. I am your host, Thomas Casey Zellers, and today we're hopefully going to change your perception on things that you thought you already knew. Were there other trades that kind of interest you, or was it just HVAC right out of the gate?
I'm kind of hoping that you'll allow me to be pretty corny. I don't think it was a year and a half, but it was a little over a year before I did any work with HVAC. The worst thing for our industry has been politics. If you're scared it's going to blow up in your face, don't put your face down there. Things happen in people's houses, and when you're there, you could make a difference. Well, I don't think the job led me spiritually. I think Christ led me spiritually.
Do you think the trades are in danger?
Absolutely. I've been fighting it for 20 years.
Hi, welcome to another episode of the Perception Podcast. I am your host, Thomas Casey Zellers, and today we're hopefully going to change your perception on things that you thought you already knew. And today's topic is going to be trades, and joining me today is a good friend, my mentor, a coworker, Curt Rivers. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
How long have you been in the trades? Because you've done other stuff other than trades, so...
Absolutely, yeah. So about 32 years.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about that. How did you first get into it?
Like a lot of career decisions, totally by accident. You've heard the joke, I was looking for a job when I found this one?
Yeah.
I was looking for a job. So there was a local propane company, and I was the manager of a 103-acre park. And the people that owned the park decided to sell it. So they needed me to stay long enough to wind things down. Our house was on the grounds at the time. And so I just needed a part-time job, and I started working at a propane company.
Okay.
And that's how I got into learning and working on furnaces, boilers, water heaters. And I liked it. I'd always been mechanical, and I liked it. Plus, I wasn't stuck in the same place every day like an office job.
Right.
So it just fit my personality.
Were there other trades that kind of interest you, or was it just HVAC right out of the gate?
Well, being in the propane business specifically, you do a lot of things besides HVAC. And there was agricultural, there was all kinds of stuff that goes along with that. But I gravitated towards the HVAC side because of being able to solve problems, fix things in people's homes.
Yeah.
And I like that because you walk into somebody's house, you usually get to know them. So it was different than just going to work and doing a job. There were more relationships.
Like a commercial job. You liked the actual residential side of things. Okay. Yeah. So is there another trade that has always kind of got your interest that you kind of maybe look back and you're like, oh, maybe I could have gotten into that, or I've always wanted to learn this or that, or...
Nothing seriously.
None? Okay.
Yeah. Honestly, until I started at the same place I'm at now 30 years ago, I really didn't make a conscious decision to focus on that. I wanted to own my own business since I was a teenager. And I realized this was a vehicle to do that, and realized how much it fit my personality at the same time. Just kind of happened.
So you wanted to do or own your own business, or at least be in business whenever you were a teenager. How did you kind of figure that out early on?
Just silly stuff.
Just
being a teenager, my hobby back then was motorcycles. So anybody that's into motorcycles knows in Indiana, you can only ride them a few months a year.
Yeah.
And so it's a really cyclical thing in that people don't have a lot of cash for hobbies. They'll sell their motorcycle cheap in the fall, and then they'll try to find one in the spring and pay dearly for it. So I took advantage of that.
Yeah.
And I would buy an old bike that needed help that I could get cheap and put it in my dad's garage and fix it. And the poor guy didn't park his car in his own garage for years. So I did that for a long time. I would just, whatever I could earn over the summer and save, I would spend on older motorcycles and then parts and fix them up over the winter and then sell them in the spring.
So you had your first lemonade stand at 5.
Right.
You started selling parts and motorcycles as a teen.
Yep.
And then eventually you got into the propane business, and eventually that led into HVAC, into where you are now.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. So how would you say you've grown, or not necessarily grown, what have you learned about yourself, I guess, throughout all those different experiences?
Knowing you, I'm kind of hoping that you'll allow me to be pretty corny.
Oh boy.
Honestly, I really enjoyed it the most, and I grew the most when I was either teaching or realizing it was a service industry and actually serving somebody.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that don't let you do anything but fix the furnace and get out, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people, they can't help themselves because they're nice people themselves, and they
just need to talk, and
you just get relationships going. And when I sold the business, I had 8,500 customers, and those are almost all residential customers.
Wow.
And so out of that, I've got at least 3,000 people that I have a relationship with that I wouldn't have if I didn't do what I did.
Are you Facebook friends though?
No.
Oh, well,
Just
see, then
I don't.
then it's not official.
Right. Yeah. No, that's the most unofficial way to gather a bunch of friends.
It's actually be genuine.
Yeah. So, no, going in and out of their houses has meant a lot. I've had a lot. I've been to a lot of funerals. Let's put it that way, because I've been there a long time, and some of them were old when I started.
Wow.
So there's been a lot of really neat people that I've met over the years.
Been into so many funerals. So you've actually, like, it's not just going in to visit and to just like catch up with them. You're actually sharing time.
Oh yeah. On 9/11, one of the customers that I went to, his daughter worked in one of the buildings that collapsed. And when I was at his house, he had no idea where she was, or if she went to work that day, or if she was working in the field or anything, for hours. So we prayed about that together. And then I went back to his house later to find out what happened. And she was fine.
Wow.
She didn't. I mean, she had a job out in the field that day.
Yeah.
It was the only reason she wasn't there. No phones worked, and nobody could get message to her parents in Indiana. So,
wow.
So, not all the relationships are that deep.
Yeah.
It was just a timing thing, but things happen in people's houses, and when you're there, you could make a difference.
Yeah. And how did you feel spiritually led? And you and I have conversations a lot, very thoughtful, insightful conversations, which I really enjoy having those conversations with you, because I think you and I both learn not only just about each other, but spiritually. I think we both kind of help each other out and reinforce one another. But how would you feel that you've kind of been led spiritually throughout this job?
Well, I don't think the job led me spiritually. I think Christ led me spiritually. And the job is just a tool. So you can take advantage of your situation or not. A lot of people go through their day without doing anything spiritual with it. And I didn't want to be that guy forever. So,
yeah. Do you ever find it hard to, or maybe not find it hard, do you ever, I guess, kind of convict yourself, or ever maybe challenge yourself of maybe some opportunities that you kind of look back or like, maybe I could have led somebody?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a learning, growing process.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't do it as well as I wish now, but I'm a lot better than it was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So how long did you have to go to school for any of your trades, or was it all on the job? Because for me, I remember when I first got in, I was greener than grass, and I was probably greener than these leaves actually behind me. Um, and I had a little bit of on the job for I think roughly about maybe 4 6 months. Um, no, probably closer to 4, because then. Yeah, because I started in service in June, and then I went to classes in, September, a 3-week class, so probably around 4 months or so. And that was a 3-week class to get me certified and get me all caught up, and then
mhm.
still did some on-the-job training, riding around with somebody. I think it was maybe about another 2 months till I was finally on my own. Was it kinda similar for you, or was it just like you got thrown into, the Shark Tank to see if you could swim?
Well, at the propane company, they had a system. They had on the job training for the very basics.
Mhm.
I think I was only there a couple months to make sure they wanted to invest the class,
Mm.
you know, and the first class was just a week. We just went away for a week and stayed in a hotel, and it was 4.5 days of pretty intense training, and it was very basic, but
Was it like a lot of hands-on, or was it just sit and read a book kinda?
it was, about half and half lecture and hands-on.
Oh, okay. Mine was too.
Yeah, that's pretty typical for the trades.
Okay.
Um, if it's sit and read a book, there's a lot of guys that are too lazy to do it, or they'll fall asleep because they stayed up too late the night before. So that you gotta have interaction. That's just a thing with teaching.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, they did that, and then I was there another 6 months before another training, and then that when I went away, it was 2 full weeks.
Oh, okay.
You know, and they just wanna make sure people are gonna stay around before they spend more money.
Uh-huh.
And then that class had more and more, you needed more tools and you needed more know-how, and it was a lot more complicated.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I had an opportunity where I actually left the trades for a while and did something else.
Mhm.
And then, the person that I bought my company from, when he hired me, I met him and started working for him, and he did a lot of heat pumps, and I didn't have any real, training on refrigeration.
Mm.
So I actually insulated, because that's what started the business. I
Mm.
insulated homes
Okay.
for about the first year. I don't think it was a year and a half, but it was a little over a year
Uh-huh.
before I did any work with HVAC, because he wanted me to take certain training
Yeah.
to fill in the stuff that I didn't know. And then he had a combination. So there used to be, uh, now you know what Nate is in AT.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it used to be, before, not before Nate, but side by side with Nate, was Refrigeration Service Engineers Society, or SES. And it was a bunch of old thuds that would teach each other what to do when you ran into whatever. And it was, well, you could see all the books at the office. I went through all of those classes,
There's a lot of books, yeah.
and it was really good because most of the year, every Thursday night, we would have class
Uh-huh.
at the office.
Oh, really?
And it wasn't just us employees, it was our SES, which meant there was a group of guys that would come in every week and we would have class.
Wow.
And you had to get to a certain level of knowledge and be certified as a teacher
Mhm.
to teach these classes. And so I was involved in that, and I taught a few classes, and they had the same certification levels, actually a little better back in the day than Nate
Mhm.
at the time. So that's how I got my certifications and training, was mostly there. And then we also did the factory schools.
Okay.
So there was a few factories that were better than others.
Yeah.
And some of those were really good and some of them weren't,
Yeah.
You get halfway through a class and realize this is not a good deal,
Yeah. Yeah. When was I guess like your point of self-confidence that really kind of came out for you? Because I mean, I'm being a little transparent with you here about myself, but I still feel like I haven't quite reached that point yet with my own journey. I know that I've been learning a lot from you and from everybody at the office, but I still don't think I have like that 100% confidence in my knowledge or my abilities. When did you think that kind of like hit for you whenever you were out on a job and you were like, I know what I'm doing 100%?
100%.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet.
99.9% then.
So you do get a level of confidence, but I will be honest with you, it did not come for years.
Mm.
There's too many variables.
Right.
As soon as you learn what you're going to run into 90% of the time, they'll come up with something different.
Mm. Yeah, you can't be a master of a industry that's changing all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So confidence and 100% confidence are two different things to me.
Was there like a job that like it kind of like light bulb for you, or?
Well, there were a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, because the physics that are involved, you just find different things that it's like a light bulb going on. Oh, now I grasp that concept. I got it.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you can deal with all the variables because you know what it's supposed to do.
Mm.
But they're different between a gas furnace and a heat pump and a boiler and a chiller and
There's a
and
thing
a
called a
geothermal.
chiller.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That's where you use refrigerant to chill a fluid.
I wish I was
the fluid to take heat out of the space.
I wish I was in the industry just to name things. Like, well, what does this do? Oh, it chills things. Well, then it's a chiller. Well, what does this do? It refrigerates stuff. Well, then that's a refrigerator. Like, I just wish I was in that industry.
Yeah. Well, those I try to compartmentalize those things mentally. So that if I walk up on a specific piece of equipment, then it belongs in a certain compartment in my head.
So you have like different boxes for different.
I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
I do. And I don't know where I learned that.
Yeah.
My father was an engineer. Maybe it was through his training. I have no idea, but it helps because then that's what I'm looking at. I can, I even compartmentalize when I'm trying to figure out a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I separate things.
Mm-hmm.
So separate out the thermostat. Is it doing what it's supposed to? Well, then don't think about it anymore. If it is.
Yeah.
And if I have enough water flow in a geothermal, then stop thinking about that.
Stop thinking about the water. Yeah.
Because you proved you have enough water flow. Done.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really handy mental tool to people that are in the trades, instead of staring at this box that does so many different functions.
Yeah.
And you forget that I have already proven that I've got water flow or I have the right gas pressure. You forget that because you allow your mind to think about different problems.
Mm-hmm.
Quit doing that.
Yeah. That's what I think I'm most guilty of.
I think I think a lot of younger people that have only been in the trades for a few years do that. And that's why I brought it up.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what the training does. The training is like a shotgun. There's all these pieces of information that come at you, and it's really good to compartmentalize them and then leave them in their box until you need to open that box.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's being taught. And to circle back around just to another thing you asked me.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that helped me was to start teaching other people. That's when I understood things.
Okay.
I don't know why
we're actually having to say it out loud.
I'm having to say it and prove my point and not sit in front of a box and worry about these other things. I already proved that, but what if?
Yeah.
No. I proved that. Leave it alone.
Yeah. Because I think that's it. Like I was just kind of saying, that's my biggest fault I think about myself is that whenever I'm sitting in front of something, I know my basic like line of things to do, but it's, well, if it isn't that and then it's this, then there's like 695 more reasons as to why it could be this, or why is it not that, or why is it this? And so I'm trying to put everything all in one little incident.
Right. And playing roulette with possible ideas is not the best way to figure out what's happening. You need to understand the physics because that's what we deal with. It's physics.
Yeah.
It's moving heat. You either need to move the heat out of the space to make them cool enough they're comfortable, or you need to move the heat into the space. And so understand the physics of that machine, and then that will tell you what it needs.
Yeah.
And then follow those things.
Listen to the machine.
Gotcha. Bob Hostetler was really good about, sorry, I didn't explain. He's the person I bought the company from. He's the one that really trained me the most. So he was really good about teaching it. You put your hands on it. I mean, if you grab a compressor when it's running, is it hot where it's supposed to be hot? Is it cold where it's supposed to be cold?
Yeah.
Because a lot happens in that compressor. Is it just making noise and nothing's happening? You find that out when you put your hand on it. And if it's really hot and your fingers sizzle, you really got other problems. So that's one of those things. Yeah, listen to the machine.
Yeah. What was the most important information that he ever taught you that you still hold on to this day?
Oh, wow. There's so much. To figure out which one was the most important would be really hard.
Okay, give me your
top 400.
Give me your top 3 or 5. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. The most important thing Bob Hostetler taught me. Wow, that's really tough.
Yeah. How much more time do we have on that one?
Yeah. There were so many things. Honestly, one of them was, if we're talking about how things work, is put your hands on it. Don't be afraid of it. I mean, if you can't put your hand on it, like a compressor, then what's keeping you from being able to put your hand on it? Like, are you scared of electricity?
Yes.
Okay. So you shouldn't be scared to put your hands inside something that runs off of electricity, because not to touch the bare, where the wires go under the screw.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it shouldn't be able to shock you anywhere else because it all should be insulated.
Yeah, but
so you have to figure that out first.
Okay.
And it's the same with gas appliances, a gas furnace. If you're scared it's going to blow up in your face, don't put your face down there. And then you need to measure what you need to measure to make sure it doesn't do that. I mean, if it doesn't light off correctly, it has delayed ignition, or it's burning outside where it's supposed to burn, then you're not done.
Have you ever seen one explode?
Yeah.
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 Did that scare you at all, or?
Oh yeah, I've got a couple scars, but yeah, bad things happen. It doesn't matter if you're an auto mechanic or what we do. Something could be broken badly enough that you can get hurt, and you can make a mistake and hurt yourself. And it could be severe. It could be no big deal. I have a lot of scars, but luckily most of them are small.
What's your biggest scar?
I had to have surgery to rebuild a shoulder once.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That wasn't fun.
That doesn't sound
That was
fun.
That was the worst.
What happened there? So that does not sound like a good time.
A pastor of a church and I were carrying probably a 300-pound piece of a boiler that we were removing from the building.
Not the boiler, but the piece.
Yeah, it was a big boiler, and they come apart in sections.
Golly.
We were carrying a section.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I had a board through where it was just locked up like this.
Uh-huh.
He dropped his half.
Oh.
And I don't know the physics, the calculations to figure out what that transferred to me.
But a lot.
But it was enough. And my shoulder, my arm just pulled out of my shoulder. So I had to have my rotator cuff rebuilt.
Wow.
That was one of the worst.
Ooh.
And it was, we thought we had it.
Yeah.
And then he just lost it all at once. And
yeah,
it happens.
I still take pride in this little scar on my thumb. Those two little dots right there.
Yeah.
Shot myself with a nail gun.
Oh, that's fun. Well,
that was back whenever I was in new construction. And I was putting up a stat board in between a wall. And I was already getting pretty punchy and getting confident with the nail gun. And of course, that's when, you do stupid stuff with it. And I don't know what led me to do it, but I was holding the nail board or the stat board like this. This is going to be great visuals for our audio listeners, by the way. I was holding it like this. Again, I don't know why, but then I put the nail gun here, fire. I was looking, I was like, well, where'd the nail go? And then I was like, why does my hand hurt? Oh, and I just see right through the top of my skin, just the nail sticking out. And I kind of started doing the motion test, and I was like, well, it doesn't feel like I hit anything like bad. So I was like, well, I got to obviously pull it out. So I pulled it out, and I was like, all right, so if I start splurting blood everywhere, I got to go to the hospital. But it only just had like one little drop of blood. So I just did another motion test, made a fist, and I was like, okay, we're good. Went around asking guys for first aid, and it was really surprising to me that on this construction site, not a single one of these people had a Band-Aid or a wrapper or any first aid kit whatsoever. But this roofer, and I remember his name, but I'm not going to say it because of confidentiality of what happened. But he was like, oh, I got something for you. He reaches behind the seat of his truck and pulls out a flask. And he pours a whiskey on it, and that hurt.
Well, yeah, alcohol will do that.
Yeah, that hurt. And then instead of having like ointment or anything, he just gave me a bunch of super glue. So that's how I tapped it up, was just super glue.
Yeah.
And my boss was like, you all right? I was like, yep, I'm good. I just went right back to work for another 3 hours.
Yep. We've had some odd accidents. We had a guy fall off a ladder one time, and that wasn't good. Had bones sticking out of his leg. So, stuff happens.
Yeah.
People get hurt. Need to slow down.
That's not a chill down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad always said, when it's good, it's fun. When it's bad, it's funny.
Can be.
Yeah. Whenever somebody gets injured, it's like, it's daunting at first, but like later on, you can laugh about it. Later.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah,
as long as you don't lose anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So going on with this, basically the subject of the show, changing people's perception. What do you think is right now, I guess, the biggest misconception about the trades in today's society? How would you go about changing that perception? What would you tell the audience today about it?
Individuals, I don't think a lot of us, at least I haven't thought of a lot of ways to change it. You only have so much power. I mean, you can only do so much. You can only influence people that care enough to listen.
True.
So what I've tried to do is to be perceived as a decent person when I'm in somebody's house.
Not like a robot, but as a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen lots of service techs come and go. I've seen a lot of them that they were really good at the job, but only parts of the job.
Mm.
They didn't communicate well. They might not have smelled good because they don't care. And then the homeowner isn't going to get to know that person and know that he's doing a good job. They may honestly
Because
not
they
even
only see the surface
they
level.
yeah, they might not honestly even call them back again or even call that company back because they didn't make a connection. It could work just fine. But and I'm not saying that you can connect with everybody because I've been in houses where I felt a lot of negativity and there was no way in fixing their problem they were going to let me break through and get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not why I was there. I was there to fix the problem and get their furnace or their air conditioner back on and get out of their life. That's what they needed.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have the opportunity to smile and be nice and make a difference, then it can make a difference. They might have a decent day when they weren't because that was the last straw. Their darn air conditioner didn't work.
Mm.
And now they're stuck at home. They're missing work. They're costing them money. And that's just another thing on top of whatever list they let make them feel bad.
Right. Yeah.
And you might be able to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why I made so many friends over the 30 years I was where I am.
Is again because you made the time.
Is because I made the time.
Yeah.
But it takes two people. And so I'll repeat myself. You can't do that with every customer. You can't do that in every home.
Mm-hmm.
Because it takes both people that want to make a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but it does make a difference. That's where perception comes from. Those people go to work, they go to church, they go to school, whatever, and they're going to share their perception of what happened in their house.
Mm.
And it can be positive or negative. So the power that I had, just being one business owner, raising kids, trying to take care of stuff with life going on, that was the only power I had, was to try to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly, I think I got more out of doing that than they did.
Yeah. Well,
but that's all I could do. So that's what I did.
Yeah. Was there ever a moment that was just like, just beyond overwhelming and just rewarding for you to kind of like for you, it spoke to you as like, yeah, this is why I'm doing this. Like not necessarily doing HVAC, but this is why I'm in people's homes. This is why I'm helping them.
Yeah, I've been lucky enough to have a lot of situations.
Uh-huh.
I've had little old ladies that just didn't have enough people to take care of them, and they knew they could call me.
Mm-hmm.
The gentleman that I prayed with on 9/11, we talked about that many times.
Mm. Yeah.
So yes, there are things like that, but
yeah. So I remember whenever I was riding around with somebody, it was kind of bittersweet. We were doing a second opinion at this lady's house. Older lady, she was selling the house. An inspector came in and her unit's in the attic, and she's not going to climb up there because her age and everything. And the inspector was like, well, this, and this is wrong with the unit, and you got water damage up there. And it just threw her into like, well, what do? I have to pay so much money for this. Well, so I went up there, and I remember I took about, 15 minutes just to really kind of make sure there isn't water, is it dried up or anything like that. And I didn't see any signs of water damage. Boards weren't stained with water or coming apart from water. The plywood looked aged, but it didn't look like water damage or anything. The unit looked fine too. And we took photos and documented a bunch of stuff. And I don't know. Like I said, it was a little bittersweet because whenever I went back down and explained all that to her, I mean, she just had tears just in her eyes.
Yeah.
And she gave me a big hug and was just like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much," because I was so worried about that. And I felt good, but I also felt, like I said, bitter about it because I was like, wow, somebody saw this little old lady and took full advantage of it. And it was just a different kind of evil
Yeah.
that I guess I knew about, and I knew people take advantage of it, but to actually see it and how it affects somebody, I hadn't seen at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a shame when that happens. It doesn't matter what, um, industry or job you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that take advantage of it,
Oh yeah.
you know? Yeah. You're always going to have that,
Mm-hmm.
I was told a long time ago by a mentor when I was in high school, there's two teams on the field.
Yeah.
So I mean, evil is always there. It's in some form.
Mm-hmm.
It's just waiting for an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are a lot of people that will tell people that you need a furnace, and it's always the ones that either can't get up in the attic or can't get down on the floor
Mm.
to look and see if they're lying. They don't know what to look for.
Yeah.
But if they can make money off of it, they'll do it. They'll try.
Yeah. Have you ever, I don't know, because I remember it definitely, because of how angry I was about that situation, it made me want to like hunt somebody down. Like, did it ever get to that point for you where it's just like, I'm going to contact that company and like say what's on my mind, or did you kind of
There
ring it back in a little bit?
there are other ways of taking care of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because there's always, I mean, we're in a town where there's a couple of well-known people. I mean, they've been in and out of court because of that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, basically nobody will sell them anything.
Because, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Either out of fear that they'll be, in a lawsuit with them, or they're just like, I'm not selling that guy anything because,
I don't want to get screwed. Yeah.
or no, I don't want to help him screw somebody else.
Oh, gotcha.
It's just like, yeah, you just shut them down.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you a loaded question here.
Uh-oh.
So I hope you're ready. Yeah. Take a sip. Do you think that there is a certain, I guess, outlook, on trades, and do you think that the trades are in trouble for the future? Because I think it was Mike Rowe who did the show Dirty Jobs,
Mhm.
said that the next generation, your generation, whenever your generation retires here in the next 5 to 10 years, that a lot of the trades industries, not just like HVAC or electricians, but a lot of them are going to be seeing about a 40% in decrease in employment, just because trades aren't necessarily being talked about the way that they used to be. Do you think that there's some truth to that, or do you think the trades are in danger?
Oh, absolutely. I've been fighting it for 20 years.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So people my age and a little bit older have spent decades telling their kids, you're not worth anything if you don't go to college. And that's absolute crap.
Mm,
Our colleges have gotten worse. They've cost more. Just go back to I would say the 70s, 80s.
mhm.
There was a really good reason for a lot of people to go to college. Right now, I I don't think there's I don't think 10 or 20% of the kids that go to college
Mhm.
should go to college.
Mm.
They don't get anything out of it. I don't know anybody. I know very few people, and I'm old and I know a lot of people. I know
You
very
know, 3,000 customers.
I know very few people that are working today that actually use the degree
that they
that they
study.
paid for or are still paying for.
Yeah. Wow.
So we got to the point as a society where we were so adamant about you have to go to college
Mhm.
that we stopped the trade schools. So in 1994, when I started working where I work now,
were there I don't mean to interrupt you. Were there trade schools in colleges, like at universities?
there were trade schools in high school. There were trade schools that stood on their own.
Really?
There were trade schools in colleges. There were trade schools everywhere. When I started working at Zellers, the business supported 2 different trade schools with donations of equipment and tools and time.
Here in Kokomo or in northern Indiana?
One of them was in Kokomo and one of them was in Elwood, which is just, 30 minutes away.
Yeah, yeah.
And the one in Elwood, they built a house every year. And 3 grades of trade school kids were the ones that built that house.
3 grades, so like 2 semesters a year. Okay.
Yeah. And Mr. Hostetler would often donate equipment, and we donated time, and they paid for part of it. But we made it affordable. And they built a house every year. Everything you need to build a house, the kids learned to do.
Yeah.
And then there was I'm not going to mention the name, but there's a trade school in Kokomo, and it's not worth using anymore. So,
is that just because of the style of teaching has changed, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and some politics that are involved. But it's really bizarre what we've done. You mentioned Mike Rowe. There are a group of people I should say a number of people. They're not necessarily in a specific group.
Yeah.
That they're doing a lot to turn this around and make the awareness and change the perception of what trades are and what they should be and what they could be.
Yeah.
He's got a very large foundation, spends a lot of money helping people get a decent education.
Yeah.
And they don't just show up and say, oh, well, there's one in the phone book that I'm going to donate money to. They actually show up and find out what those classes are and if they will be helpful and what they cost, and they have job placement and everything else. So that's the one that I know the most about, and it's probably the best done. It's called Micro Works.
Okay.
And my point is there are a lot of people that are trying to turn the tide, because it's really bizarre that our society has changed so much. We pay people to do services for us that we wouldn't have thought of 30 years ago. I mean, it's bizarre. I mean, you can get your house cleaned for $20 a day now. I've seen that. I don't know how they do that. I almost don't believe it. But my point is, you can pick up one of these little devices and have somebody do something for you that most of us would do ourselves. We are really
dumbed down,
really determined to pay somebody to do what we could do ourselves.
Yeah.
So that we could pick up this device and waste time. It's really strange. I mean, I say this over and over again. I probably said it to you sometime when we were working. I knew both of my grandfathers really well. Neither one of them needed a plumber.
Yeah.
Or a veterinarian, and they had animals. Or an HVAC guy. Or a guy to work on their flathead V8. They just did it themselves. They worked on their own tractors. And that's only 2 generations later. And most of my friends have a very specific job that they do, and they don't know how anything else works. They understand their job and they do it well, and they're not stupid, but they don't know how their air conditioner works.
So do you think a lot of that plays into laziness and this being public enemy number one?
No,
Or-
it's advertising. It's absolutely done on purpose.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way?
I want to sell you vegetables so you don't need to be a gardener.
Okay.
So that happens over and over and over again in anything you want to talk about.
Yeah.
I have a friend that when he retired, he's purchased multiple houses. And he goes in and he fixes everything that needs to be fixed in that house
Sure.
that was worn out or broken. And then he sells a nice house and he makes a nice profit.
Uh-huh.
And the only thing he doesn't do is if it's too big for him to lift.
Mm.
But there's a lot of people that flip houses
Uh-huh.
and they hire all of it done.
Mm-hmm.
And guess who watches the DIY channels? Not him.
Not him.
Because he just knows how to do it.
Yeah.
He grew up doing it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very intentional. It's hard to go through a day without falling for some kind of an ad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say, well, I'm too smart for that. No.
Yeah. We all have.
We all do it.
Yeah.
There are people that don't know they're falling for an ad, but most of us do, and we make that choice anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's very intentional. I think there's a lot of people working constantly to change your mind about something and get you to buy something, whether you need it or not.
They just want to sell you this sort of plastic dream.
Well, that's what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, and it doesn't look bad.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't look evil because they're just, that's their job. Their job is to sell you something.
Yeah.
One specific thing, a bottle of water.
Yeah.
They designed it to
100%
look great.
recycled, yeah.
There's 12 things on that one little little square right there.
Yeah.
That'll tug at whatever part of your heart you care about.
Yeah.
It's clean. It's recycled. It's saving the world. Whatever.
Yeah.
That's their job.
Sure.
They're supposed to sell things.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up doing less yourself. And at the same time that we're doing less ourselves, we're not training people to do stuff for us. That's the problem.
Because you said that you've been fighting this for, you said decades now. Like, what's the biggest thing that you've noticed? Like, what's the hardest part of that battle?
The hardest part of that battle is that nobody understands, well, not nobody. Very few people today that I see around your age or younger understands the self-worth of hard work.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I love manual labor.
Yeah, if you take that manual labor and you fix something for somebody that it was broken, then it's even better.
Oh, yeah. I love that feeling.
So, that's why we're here talking about the trades, is because I want people to know that it isn't just about the money. I mean, you don't have to work for somebody that has quotas. You should just learn what you're doing and do a good job, and then you'll receive personal rewards that are worth more than the money.
Yeah.
But that's really hard to teach people because it's really boring. We're not saving the world doing that.
Yeah.
But that's what it's meant to mean. So
yeah. Do you think a lot of that has come from a lot of changes in the industry from when it was, whenever you joined 70s or 80s?
No, I actually started in 94.
94. Okay. So whenever you joined in 94, do you think a lot of the changes that have gone on in the industry has played into that at all? Or do you think that that's more of the outside people looking in on the industry and then saying, well, no, this is how it needs to be?
Well, there's a couple things that constant sales pitch to try to make more money.
Oh, that's
The same amount of work. That's
That-
part.
that-
Just the greed thing is always there.
Yeah, that's going to be everywhere though.
The worst thing for our industry
Mm-hmm.
has been politics, where the government will say, well, this box that you're going to put in somebody's house
Mm-hmm.
has to be more efficient by a certain date. And they don't know what it takes to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know that it takes, they want to solve problems that they've made themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about politicians.
Yeah.
Because they made those so-called problems so that they can vote on how to fix the problems and therefore make money.
Okay.
So they're making decisions about policies for efficiency, which actually cost the earth, if that's what you're trying to save,
Sure.
more because they're making money.
Gotcha.
So starting back probably 2017 or 2018, cars and trucks were forced to have a switch to turn the engine off every time they put the brakes on and actually come to a full stop.
Mm-hmm.
Then you let off the brakes, the engine starts again. The amount of gas that's saved in that is probably not nearly equal to what it takes in raw materials and the energy to manufacture starters.
Mm.
But now if you go across town and you would have started your car once,
Mm-hmm.
now you drive through a town and you have to stop 12 times. Now the engine is started 12 times for a 20-minute trip.
Yeah.
How is that possibly saving the earth?
Yeah. Because you're using more gas every time that you actually start up the car.
Well, and what kind of energy does it take to pull all of those raw materials out of the ground and form them into a starter that needs to be replaced?
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Mm. Do you think that there are ways that we can increase efficiency necessarily?
Oh, yeah.
Or
There are a lot of efficiencies that have been improved, even in our industry, in the car industry. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just that because there are engineers and scientists that are doing good work
Sure.
to make things more efficient. But there's a lot of silly stuff,
Okay.
like auto start stop systems on cars.
Yeah.
I mean, that the reason they're here is the CAFE standards.
Cafe standards.
So when a big auto business,
Mm-hmm.
they make deals with the government
Mhm.
so that because of all of these rules, they can't enforce all of them all at once. So in order to sell a heavy truck that doesn't follow the rules, and it's not more efficient because it can't be,
Uh-huh.
they have to take a regular truck and put one of these silly items on it. And the only reason that's there is because the people that are making the rules don't understand the physics behind it. And they say everything's got to be this efficient by this date. Well, it can't be.
Mm.
But now it's a law.
Mm.
So they let the CAFE standards, it's like, okay, well, we're going to take your smaller trucks and put this extra thing on them so we can tell people that we're doing something to make it the world more efficient.
Yeah.
But it isn't. And so again, it's greed.
Gotcha. Is that because, do you think that there's not necessarily, say, like a representative in that room to talk to them about, like, well, I've been doing this for 30 years and we don't need such and such type thing? Or like, well, if you actually want to do that, this is probably what you would have to do instead.
Well, I believe somebody somewhere thought that could save money
Okay.
and that it was probably misapplied
Mm.
because the people that are making decisions don't really care. They don't really think we're saving the world. They just are voting on something that will make them money because they've already invested in it.
Before, yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. Do you think a lot of it? Do you think a lot of people could learn from YouTube videos? Because I know, like, even with my dad, like, it's like, well, just go on YouTube and learn how to do it yourself, which, yes, is helpful. But do you think that, like, I guess for starters, people could essentially do that?
The problem is that when you're wrong and you make a YouTube video, there's
No, a bunch of people are going to be wrong. Yeah.
exactly. There's no way to know whether you're watching somebody. I mean, if I watched a video on how to cut diamonds, how would I know they're right?
Mm.
So if I watched a video on brain surgery,
Mm-hmm.
how would I know I'm watching the video that this guy actually is doing it correctly?
Yeah.
And you may think, well, that's just taking it to an extreme. Okay, it is. But do you want somebody working on your gas appliance in your house and you're going to go to sleep in that house tonight?
Mm-hmm.
And he only got his training from YouTube videos.
Mm.
I wouldn't.
So people watching this video right now, what makes you right?
Well,
Put you on the spot there with that on.
not really, because I learned from people that I trusted.
Okay. All right.
And hopefully, I haven't blown up a house yet.
Yeah.
And so I'm teaching things that I know work.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not saying that I haven't looked at YouTube videos to figure out how to do something.
Sure.
But you don't want to base a career on just going to random YouTube videos. And believe me, they're random. Plus, we get back to the whole sales thing.
Mm-hmm.
The algorithms, what you look at causes you to look at something else. And then they sneak in stuff they want you to see.
Mm.
And not all of it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have never purposely gone in here and looked for pornography.
Right.
But it's popped up and I've had to deny it.
Mm.
So what else have they shoved in my feed
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't ask for?
That they're trying to get a quick sell on you for.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because why do it yourself?
Right.
Gotcha. What are some funny stories that you got? Because I know we've been kind of hitting the loaded stuff, the heavy stuff. So let's kind of make it a little lighthearted here for a little bit.
Oh, wow. I'm not even sure where to go with that.
Okay, let me preface it with this though. Anything that doesn't involve me on the job that we worked on.
This is some of the funniest stuff.
It is though. I'm a pretty funny guy.
So I don't know. I can't think of anything just right off the bat that would be an interesting story to tell.
Has there been like a experience with a customer that was just kind of like really, really bad? That you just like you were kind of like right there to wring their neck and you were just so glad that once you left, you were just like, all right, I'm done. I'm never going back there.
Yeah. Yeah. So not very long ago, actually.
Oh, okay.
I've really been blessed all these years. I haven't had very many problems with people's pets.
Mm.
I don't know why. I don't know whether it was because my mother and my grandfather were so into horses that I've always just kind of had a neat relationship with animals, because you walk into somebody's yard or their house and if they don't raise their dog the way you would, it can be scary. You might think the dog's dangerous. You never know. And I've just really been lucky.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in thousands and thousands of homes, and I've been bitten exactly once. It was just a few years ago.
Mm.
And a lot of it, I think, is because I have the right attitude towards the animal. I'm not sure about that,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems odd that I would be this lucky. But I went to this house multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
And he had rescued 3 pit bulls, 3 different times. And I'm not against pit bulls. Some of them have been some of the sweetest dogs I've been around.
Oh yeah, I love pit bulls.
But these were all 3 rescue dogs, and one of them was just absolutely mean. I don't know if he had been abused. I don't know if he just disliked people with gray beards. I don't know what his problem was.
Yeah.
But I had to deal with the homeowner. You've got these dogs. They don't like me. Put them in another room, put them in the backyard. I don't care.
Sure.
I'll fix what I need to fix and pay your bill and I leave.
Yeah.
And we got along great.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the house this one day and I always just called from the driveway. Hey, I'm here. I don't see the dogs in the backyard. Oh, I've got them in the back room. Okay. That's the other fun, interesting thing about going into everybody's houses. You just kind of have to take their word for about anything.
Mm.
And it's not always that way. It usually is, but it's not always that way. So he tells me the dogs are in the back room. Well, I'm thinking back room with the door closed.
Mm.
Well, the dogs had already torn up the door, and the door is one of those cheap hollow fill
They bursted through the
plywood door that's just leaning up against the door frame after they tore it off.
So it wasn't like actually like
No, there's no screws or wire or anything involved.
No.
There's just literally a door that weighs like 6 pounds.
you put them in a
up
back
against an
room and
opening.
put up against put a board up. Wow.
Yeah. So we go down in the basement and I figured out the problem. And now I can hear all hell break loose upstairs. They push the door open and they're running through the house to get to the basement.
Yeah.
And then I hear them coming down the basement steps. And so I back up into a corner where I have wherever I can swing my arm is what I can defend.
Yeah.
You can't do that out in the middle of a room. And I've got my trusty pliers in my hand. And
Heavy ones.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he can't hold back all 3 dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And dogs are smart. And he has a pack. And so 2 of them distract him. And the big one that doesn't like me, he never barked. He never danced around. He just went right through that guy's legs and came right up and bit me in the knee.
Mm.
Like
a not like a nibble, but like an actual like ah.
He was trying to bite me. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
But luckily, the homeowner slowed down the other 2, and I had been in situations similar to this before.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I backed myself into a corner
Mm-hmm.
because there was no time to get out. I mean, they had filled the only way out
Mm-hmm.
when I heard them coming down the stairs. So I'm dealing with this dog and he's dealing with the other 2. And finally he gets them out of the room that I'm in and gets them upstairs and puts them away.
Mm-hmm.
This time in a room that actually had a working door. And
that actually latches. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm just putting my tools away.
Uh-huh.
I mean, at this point I'm done. We
So you
multiple trips. I had talked to him about the dogs, put them in the backyard, put them in another room.
So you're refusing any more service at this point.
Well,
then?
it hadn't even come up yet. I'm just packing my tools, headed out because I needed to figure out where all this blood's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I get basically upstairs to head out the door. He says, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I'm going to go out to the truck and take my pants off and see if I need to go to the hospital or if I just need a Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, what about my heat pump? And I said, I really don't care about your heat pump.
So he had no concern over you and your safety at that.
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I just kept walking. And now I'm out at the van trying to figure out if I can get my pants up to my knee or if I have to take my pants off or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's still trying to convince me to come back and fix his heat pump. I don't, I mean, I started to say I don't care, but I do care. You know, if I know this guy's got grandkids.
Yeah.
So I do care. It's none of my business how he runs his house. It's none of my business if he wants to have a dog that could hurt people.
Mm.
But we had a deal.
Mm.
You know, you put your dogs away and I'll take care of your heat pump.
Yeah.
That's all I asked.
Yeah.
And he was mad at me because I wasn't willing to trust him after I got bitten and was bleeding.
And he didn't care about your well-being at that point either.
Right.
Yeah.
So I
Sorry, my dog bit you. Can you still fix my unit?
no, there was no sorry my dog bit you.
Really?
No, there was never that. Yeah.
Whoopsie daisies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've never sued anybody in my life. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I think we're too litigious as as a country anyway. There's very few times I think you need to sue somebody.
Mhm.
But that's of course if everybody treats each other like people.
Sure.
Whatever. Anyway, yeah, that was really upsetting to me
Mm-hmm.
that he didn't care because I've met a lot of people that had a lot of crazy dogs.
Well, what was the one that you were telling me about not too long ago where you were in a crawl space?
Oh, that one was actually hilarious.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So I met these people. They were a longtime customer, really nice family.
Yeah.
And they built a new house and we put in this system. And they had this, I don't know, 40-pound hound that was just a funny dog, but it didn't like strangers. And if you pulled up in anything larger than a 4-door sedan, he just went nuts.
Mm.
And I'm not going to get out of a vehicle because I have to be so macho that I'm going to fight with your dog. No, if whatever your system with your dog is your system with the dog.
Yeah.
And if you don't put the dog away when I'm there, then I leave. It's just simple because I'm not there to fight with your dog and you don't want me to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we had a deal.
Mhm.
I'd pull in the driveway and tell them I'm here. And they would just give the dog a piece of cheese and go in the back room and I'd get my work done. And when I left, I'd see the dog bouncing around because
Yeah.
I'm leaving. He did his job. He scared me off.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So this went on for years.
Uh-huh.
And I ordered some parts because they had a leak in their crawl space.
Okay.
So we had a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So that day, something happened in their schedule and they couldn't be there.
Mm.
So the dog was supposed to be put in the house. I had the code to the garage. I had an appointment. They knew I was coming. I was in a marked vehicle. Everything's okay.
Yeah.
I pull in the driveway. I hit the code. I go in the garage, get down in the crawl space, get all my tools, all the parts, everything I need to do the job. And then the dog comes down in the crawl space with me.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, this is not good. This just can't happen. Because how in the heck am I going to get out of this crawl space? I've seen this dog tear the pants off of a guy.
Yeah.
This is not good. So I grab my trusty pliers, back up into a corner, and he comes over and licks my face. And then he just runs around the crawl space.
Just so
like
happy.
40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
There's somebody in his crawl space. This is just the best day ever. And I got my work done and he just kept bringing me toys. Just bring me a toy. And I'd throw it across the crawl space and he'd bring it back. And he was just so happy. And for like 3 years after that, every time I would go there, he would bring me a toy. So, cause I'm his crawl space buddy.
Yeah.
I have no idea how that even happened, but that was hilarious. That was a lot of fun.
I think you've told me this story before too. Am I correct in saying that you once got stuck in
Yeah.
crawl space? What was that? What happened there?
Yeah.
Because I remember you telling me a story. I can't remember how it went though, but
Yeah, it was a very old house that was not built very far off the ground.
so it was like
So
snug crawl space.
yeah, back in my skinny days, I weighed about, 180 pounds and had no problem in small spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not, nobody likes small spaces, but I'm not what I would call claustrophobic.
Mm-hmm.
So I get in this crawl space, and more than once, as I'm pushing myself along, literally with my toes in my hands,
Yeah,
because I can't get up and crawl.
yeah, it's not a crawl space. I'm having to
Yeah.
slug my way.
More than once on my way back to fix this problem,
Yeah.
I'm laying in the dirt and I can feel the floor joists on my back. That's how close it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that thick. That's how thick I am, at this point in time.
Yeah.
And I got it done, and now I've got to go backwards.
Oh, so there wasn't enough room for you to actually.
Mm-mm.
Well,
No,
maybe.
because the only way I could get to where I was there was ductwork over here and there was plumbing over here. It was like a pie wedge, and I got down to where I had to pick the right wedge to get to where I was going to fix the leak. So I fixed the leak. Now I'm trying to get out. But when you go backwards, all your clothes bunch up.
Yeah.
Well, you don't think about that ahead of time.
No, you don't.
So I can't get out. And I tried for probably an hour by myself, and I couldn't get out.
Wow.
And the only way I could move was just to relax and breathe for a little while, and then let all of the air out of my body. Just try to push it out, and then maybe I can move a little bit, and then something else will get hung up. And so I had all kinds of muscle cramps trying to pull my shirt over here as my pants over here. I was just stuck on everything. And I don't know how long it was. It was at least an hour and a half. And I should have been done with this job. It was before cell phones,
Oh, yeah.
before I had a cell phone.
And let me guess, you got a radio in the truck.
I had a radio in the truck. Yeah. So I was just thinking, well, they're gonna get off work and come home sometime,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll get out. So I could relax every once in a while and just calm down.
So you had in the back of your mind, like, this isn't the end of the world. I will eventually get out of here. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But luckily I spent enough time on that job. I was an hour and a half late
Mm-hmm.
for the next job. And the people I worked for were good people. So they came looking for me. Mr. Hostetler came looking for me.
Really?
Yeah. Because it just didn't make sense. This is a guy that shows up at work, and I mean, anytime I needed to do something personal, something weird came up, kid got sick, my wife got sick, whatever, I need to leave work, I would use the radio or go by the office and say, hey, I need a couple hours off, or I need the afternoon off, or whatever. I didn't just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
So Mr. Hostetler pulls in the driveway, and the truck's there, and he can't find me. So he starts yelling, and I yell back. He grabbed my feet and pulled me out.
He grabbed you in the feet?
Yeah.
That had to be so demasculating at that point.
Oh, no, I didn't care at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, at that point, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just didn't matter.
So he knew you well enough to know something is off, and so he's like, I got to go do a welfare check on Curt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well.
And, that brings up another subject. And I find myself apologizing for being corny, old-fashioned or whatever.
Yeah.
But that knowledge of knowing that you can trust somebody
Mm-hmm.
is literally what makes things better.
Mm.
Yeah. Instead of worrying about, well, what am I going to look like if I break down and I admit I care about this or whatever, or it's none of their damn business what I do in the afternoon. If I want to leave work, I'm just going to leave work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then now you lose the opportunity of having, good people care about you.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the few bad things that I can say about where society has changed.
Mm.
you have to feel manly, or you have to feel like you're in charge, or you know what? Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're not in charge, and that's okay.
I would actually go on to say you're never in charge.
Well, that's true, but I mean, we are tasked with responsibilities,
Sure.
earthly responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So if you repeatedly follow through with those responsibilities, you will earn respect,
Mm-hmm.
and people will, you'll be closer to those people,
Mm-hmm.
and the payback's really, really rich.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, you just want to act like everybody else, and then you may not have those kinds of friendships.
So I want to ask you another deep question here. Is there any point throughout your career, at any point in time, that you wish you could go back and change?
Oh, maybe a couple small things. I've thought about it a lot. When you get to my age, you get asked that question a lot. What would you change?
Mm.
And I've been married for 39 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got 3 kids and 4 grandkids. And maybe I've watched too many sci-fi movies, but I'm afraid if I had changed something else might be different. So there's not a lot of things I would change.
Is that affected you and how you've grown spiritually as well?
I think I think the spirituality has made me understand that
Mm.
instead of the other way around.
Okay. In what way?
You said it. We're not in charge.
Yeah.
I think I was supposed to have this job,
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of found me. That's not what I was looking for.
Yeah, like you said, it was I don't know how I got this job, but I got this job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it found me.
Mm.
And I always thought that like when I'm looking for an employee,
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily look for how much they know, or how long their career has been, or any of that kind of stuff. But the most important thing to me, if I was hiring an employee,
Mm-hmm.
is to hire the right person, because I could teach almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
I know enough about what we need to do that I can teach it.
Yeah.
I don't know everything. I don't mean it that way. But what I need people to do, I can teach. But I can't teach somebody that doesn't care.
Yeah.
So there's no point. And so you just find little gradients in between. And I would rather hire a really good person
Mm-hmm.
than a really good tech.
Mm.
If I thought he wasn't a good person.
Mm-hmm. Because you just said, like, you feel 100% that you've been called to have that, be in this industry for as long as you have been. What do you think is the thing that you've kind of, I guess, gotten from it, in a more personal aspect? I guess not so much a spiritual aspect, but more of a personal.
The relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was a time where things kind of fell apart in my own business, and things didn't go well.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times before that where it went well for quite a while. And I think the relationships have been the most. I mean, I made enough money to pay the bills doing other things.
Mm-hmm.
But I got more out of this job than all the other jobs put together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can, most of the time you can learn even from a negative situation,
Oh yeah, 100%.
but it's more fun to learn from positive situations.
Yeah.
So this worked out really well for me.
Mm-hmm.
It really did.
Given all your experience, given your history with the business and everything that's kind of gone on for you, what do you think is next for you? And also, just politely, considering your age, are you worried at all, or are you confident in passing on the torch for where it's the future of everything's got to go?
Well, luckily, I don't have much effect on the future.
Yeah, the future's not dependent on you or any of us.
Right.
Thank God. Yeah.
But when it comes to like that specific business,
Mhm.
I sold it a couple years ago. I did my best to find somebody that understands what we did for a long time.
Mhm.
And so there's I'm sure he won't do everything the way I did, but that doesn't mean that I think I did everything right. But he has the same he has a similar vision.
Mm.
He knows that it's a service industry.
Yeah,
You know,
not a sales industry, it's a service
yeah.
industry. Yeah.
So we're not just there to sell stuff. I like to sell stuff because then when I walk out of that house, they've got new stuff that works better. It might be more efficient.
Yeah.
It's, it's clean.
Yeah, and I've told customers before, like, I'd like to sell you something, but I enjoy sleeping at night.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not worried about my customers, and I've never been selfish enough to worry about what's my legacy going to look like. I get tired of people saying that, actually.
What's your legacy gonna be?
Yeah, I I don't care. Because there's so much misunderstanding.
Mm.
You know, uh, I'm not here to make people think I was a good guy. I'm here to make myself think I was a good guy.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about my legacy. Um, I'm not worried about uh, not being part of that anymore. My job for quite a few years has been to work myself out of a job. That's how I think you should end up your job.
Mm.
Training enough people they can do it their way, and if they do it well enough for enough people, they'll make a living at it. If you try to mess people over, you'll probably be found out.
Mm.
And you'll have to keep hopping from one place to another, and nobody will be happy.
Yeah.
It's a service industry,
Mm.
so put your pants on and go serve somebody.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah. Any parting words you'd like to give our audience, or would you like to shamelessly plug the company at all in this moment?
Well, it's not. Yeah, it is totally shameless because
Yeah.
there's no shame in telling people you do a good job.
Well, good.
You
Then
do a good job.
right there in that camera, tell people where to grab us.
Well, we're close to Kokomo, Indiana, and it is Hostetler Energy, and it is 765-628-3331. And we specialize in geothermal, but we do a lot of heat pumps, and we do a lot of gas furnaces and air conditioners.
Mm-hmm.
And we're mostly residential, but the guy that bought the company he does a lot of commercial at one of his other positions, one of his other jobs, or
Mhm.
I mean,
Couple.
offices, companies that he bought.
Mhm.
And so we're probably going to move into more commercial around Howard County.
Cool. Sweet.
That's it.
Well, thank you so much for being on
Yeah.
the show today.
Thank you.
I really do appreciate uh, the knowledge that you have, because you clearly have a lot to share. So I'm glad that we got just a little bit, an hour and a half of it. And I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, folks, that's it on this one. So if you like this episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I'm your host, Thomas Casey Zellers, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care.